So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Len Lonzi. I'm the managing director of the Preccelerator program. This accelerator is a program of a law firm here in Los Angeles, California, and I am situated here in beautiful sunny Santa Monica this afternoon, and looking at all your beautiful faces and wondering why we're not here. Well, we just found over the past 4 years, this is a great way to deliver a program. And today we have one of the brightest brand specialists I've met in talking about how to make our personal brand clearer, more constructive, and something that really reflects who we are. I don't want to get into his program too much, and I'm going to let Chirag introduce himself in just a second. A couple of housekeeping items. Please mute yourself, and that will keep the back chatter off. And also, if you have a question, please put it into chat. I will be monitoring chat and ask those questions as the timing is appropriate. And then at the end, if there's any unfinished questions, we will get to them then. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chirag Sagar, and Chirag, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet all of you. Looking forward to kind of sharing a lot of insights and sharing my background. So today's topic is personal branding mastery, essentially how to skyrocket your income, impact, and influence. The goal is, how do you become more of a thought leader, more of a celebrity in your respective industries? So I'll be diving into that. So quick background on me, and maybe just to provide some context. Name's Chirag, so I've got a really hard name to pronounce. I used to live in Chicago for a couple of years. My colleagues at that time used to call me Chirago in Chicago, if that helps. So just, there's no O at the end of that, so just use that as a little mnemonic. But quick background on me is I'm born and raised in LA, and grew up in like the La Crescenta Glendale area. Ended up going to USC. My first stint out of college was starting a nonprofit teaching financial education to high school students. We won this huge White House competition. We were recognized at that time, I think it was by President Obama at the White House. And that nonprofit has received funding from like Bill Melinda Gates Foundation and a variety of different banks, actually. I was there for 2 years, and Facebook introduced advertising on their platform. We spent, I remember, about $50 on Facebook ads and ended up getting about $100 in donations into the nonprofit. And that's what sparked my curiosity to really get into marketing. I realized that Facebook was going to change the entire advertising landscape. And I left the nonprofit 10 years ago, started a social media agency. One of my friends wanted to start a luxury magazine, a digital luxury publication. He wanted to create like the BuzzFeed of luxury. So I started helping him out, and within 6 months, we took that platform to reach, and we were reaching 20 million people a month through our platform. We had a lot of content that went very viral. And I realized that about 10 years ago that every company and every individual is a media brand, whether you're taking full advantage of it or not. And so you could essentially drive in, build up your own audience, and you could sell products, services to them. You could build an audience, essentially, as we're now seeing, right? There's a lot of social media influencers that exist now that have millions of followers and are driving in a lot of opportunities for themselves. And so the goal here is to showcase and share insights on how to do that. So fast forward from launching that luxury publication, I was still running a social media agency, which became a full marketing company. And one of my clients, who now is my co-founder of Mission Matters, used to be a financial advisor in his past life. And he went from working at a large bank to starting his own financial advisory practice. And during that transition, we had a full discussion. And one of the things that we both knew is that we needed to turn him more into a celebrity figure in order for him to get more clients for his financial advisory firm. So we helped him publish a book. We helped him launch a podcast. We helped him manage his social media accounts. We did some PR for him and got him some speaking opportunities. Every single thing that we did to build up his brand, we realized we could do this for other people. And that was the impetus for how we started Mission Matters, which in short is a full brand that's basically have gotten us opportunities to meet folks like Richard Branson. I've had the opportunity to work with him. And to give you in a nutshell, we have two sides of Mission Matters. We are a full media platform. We reach about 1 million people a month now. We've created about 70,000 pieces of content. Adam, my co-founder, is actually the face of our company at Mission Matters. He's recorded over 6,000 podcast interviews. We have an entire book publishing division in our company. So we published about 300 authors in a variety of books. We host events. We built a community. We've had about 100,000 people that have attended all the events that we put together. And then our podcast has been viewed over 20 million times, essentially between all we've done. So that's our media side of the business. On the back end, we have an entire personal brand accelerator where we actually help people build out their entire personal brand. It's an 8-week program, and we dive into details on, really helping people figure out their missions, their visions, their values, their brand message, and then even helping them develop a content strategy and social media strategy for them to achieve their goals. From there, we can take those same people, help them publish books through our book publishing division. In fact, we have a couple of our book authors that are actually in this call now. So huge shout out to everyone here. Not only that, but then we have a whole podcast agency division. So we've helped about 150 people launch podcasts as well, and we manage their social media accounts. And then also we do a little PR. And then not only that, but then we provide speaking opportunities. So if you look at the whole ecosystem of building someone's personal brand, we're helping people really figure out what their true brand is, what their life mission is, helping them accomplish that mission through books, podcasts, social media, PR, and then provide them speaking opportunities. And one of the biggest reasons why we keep hosting a lot of events, we're, I think, hosting about 60, 70 events this year, is because we help those same people build a community around what they're doing that are like-minded and can really help them accomplish their goals for what they do. So getting into the topic, essentially whatever you're doing in business, bottom line is you need a strong personal brand. With the way that social media works now, if you can attach a face to what you're doing, it humanizes the company. It humanizes your services that you're offering. And it shows people that, you're a real person, that you're not just, you're not just some like random bot or spam. I'm sure you guys get a lot of spam mail. And so the whole point of this is if you can build a persona around what you're doing, usually with the face of a person, that's the day and age that we live in now, where you can really maximize all of your opportunities. And there's a lot of examples. I mean, you can look at folks like Gary Vee, from your Grant Cardones of the world to your Richard Bransons. I mean, there's a lot of big brands that do this really well. Even like your Elon Musk or like your Steve Jobs, go down the list. So what this ultimately does, it tells people who you are. And because you now have a face to the company, it separates you, because that's the one thing that essentially you can almost build a persona for yourself and also maximize the company branding cachet as well. And so give you some examples. One of our clients that we've helped publish a book for, Noelle Randall, she's got about 700,000 plus YouTube followers and subscribers. She was one of our clients. She wanted our help to just fine tune her brand. She's got about 50,000 followers on Instagram now. I think over maybe like 200,000 followers on TikTok. She's done an incredible job to build an elevator brand. She wanted to take her brand to the next level. And so she owns a few different businesses on the back end. And she wanted to really position this. So the one thing that we did for her is we helped her publish a book. That was one thing that she hadn't really done before. And she's now utilizing that book to elevate her brand further, to get more speaking opportunities and to get more PR opportunities, because her social media and her content strategy has just been on point. And one thing that she does really well, she has an entire coaching business, but real estate coaching. And the one angle that we found is there aren't that many Black women that are teaching real estate coaching. And so we knew that was a huge differentiation point for what she was doing. And so we needed to get her voice out there a little bit more further. So she's a great example of essentially what you can do if you really put a face behind what you're doing. So bottom line goal is it defines your reputation, and it does set you apart from others for a variety of the reasons that I mentioned here. So probably one of the best examples that I can share when it comes to really building out your personal brand is one of our authors, Elliot Callan. He basically approached us and he wanted to build up his book of business. He was managing, I think, about $250 million under management. So he's also a financial advisor. And it came full circle because this was my co-founder Adam's job previously, which is why Elliot trusted us, because we did a lot of things to brand Adam. And so when Elliot approached us, we went through our accelerator. From there, he published a chapter in one of our anthology books that we put together. And then based on his story, he's got a little bit more of a tragic story. So unfortunately, his son committed suicide about 9 years ago. And he built he launched a foundation called A Brighter Day Foundation to help teenagers and deal with anxiety and PTSD or any form of depression, so that essentially no parents would ever have to deal with what he's gone through, which he'll say it was the worst experience that he's ever had. And so we really highlighted what his mission is, and it's intertwined in his business. We've coordinated 5 speaking engagements for him. We have one actually tonight here in LA that's taking place in Beverly Hills to help him promote his story and his book further. So we went from really understanding what his mission is, and we're really making him the face of his entire company, because his entire foundation and who he is, he's a very mission-driven person. Hence the book Driven that we published for him. So using that as like a basic framework, we developed 4 steps or 4 points here on what you need to know when you're building your personal brand. Number 1, you have to really know and you have to identify who you serve. You have to know your target audience. You have to really break down who it is, what the messaging is for, and really how to get to them. So if you can break down as much about and understand the demographics and psychographs of these specific people, you want to get as targeted as much as you can. So demographics, like what areas do they live in? What are the geographic regions? What are they interested in? So what are the common interests that these people have? What is the income level of the folks that you're approaching? Are they more like higher end? Is it more like a luxury product, or is it more of a luxury service, or is it more like mass market, right? What are the price points? What are the buying behaviors of the individuals that you're targeting? What are the typical age ranges? Is it from your 25, is it your Gen Z? Are you targeting millennials? Are you going after baby boomers? All of that matters, because that dictates what platforms you focus on. So you want to get as detailed and basically create a checklist. The easiest thing that you can do is literally on a piece of paper, write down your target audience and get as detailed and granular as you can, because the more specific that you can get, the more targeted your messaging will be, the more targeted your advertisements will be, so you can focus on that audience and create content. Detailed and granular as you write down your target audience. Is there a lot of feedback, or that's coming from me only?
I took care of it.
Okay, cool. So when you're identifying your audience, essentially be as specific as possible. So the whole point of this is you want to create an authentic connection with your people, whoever that may be. And so I have some examples here. One example here for one of our clients that we work with is Tyler DeBra. He runs an entire private equity fund focused on working with real estate investors. And so his entire brand, for what he stands for, is all focused on positivity, love, and service. And so he wants to provide affordable housing to a variety of folks. And so we helped him pinpoint, real estate investors that live in some of the bigger markets, ideally where he's based in, because part of his entire strategy was to develop events so he can connect and meet these people. And then we helped him develop an entire digital strategy that complemented his in-person strategy. And so part of this was getting him more speaking opportunities, essentially. And so this is him with Grant Cardone going to his conference. This is him being interviewed on Dave Meltzer's show, another, really big influencer. And so we kind of built out an entire strategy that aligned with who he is and based on that target audience that he's going after. So this is where you want to get as granular as possible, because the more targeted, the more you know who your audience is, the easier it'll be to then sell your products and services. Second thing here is you want to really define your brand identity. So once you've kind of defined who's your target audience, you now really need to know yourself also. So when you're defining your brand identity, in order for all this to work, you have to be consistent. And because if there's a break in direction, it can cost you your audience's trust. So I'll give you an example, and this is where I can kind of share myself. You'll see that I have one singular image here. I go back to this one photo. If you look at my bio, if you look at all of my social media feeds, every single photo I use professionally is this one photo, and that's it. So anytime you find me, even on my Venmo accounts, like I had a whole situation where someone sent me a Venmo and they were concerned that it wasn't my account, but they saw that it was aligned with my LinkedIn and everything else. So when you're building out your brand image, you want to be consistent at creating that same visual identity so people know who you are and your brand is as consistent as possible. So this is where you can really get into the brand statement and the tagline. So you can use this tagline as a quick summary. in your marketing. So for example, if you look on top of me, our company is called Mission Matters. Our tagline is we amplify stories. In very simple, it's 3 words, right? You know exactly who we are and you know what we're doing. Our main goal is to interview people and we amplify your story. We want to get your story out there. The more specific, the more simple that you can make this, the easier it'll be. One framework or one rule that I use personally is I basically, my goal is if I can explain this to a 5 or 6-year-old and they understand what I do, odds are that most people will understand on this planet exactly what you're doing. So that's how simple, that's how very concise we try to make our messaging, because you only get a few seconds, especially with digital marketing. You only get like 3, 4, 5 seconds to get someone's attention. And so you got to be crisp and clear with your messaging. And the more simple that you can make it, the easier it'll be to get to who you want to get your message in front of. So some of the questions you'll want to ask yourself in very simple language is, what do you do? Why do you do it? How do you do it? And how do you help people? So very simply, Mission Matters. We are a media platform that reaches millions of people. And we have launched a personal brand accelerator to turn people into celebrities. Why do we do it? Because it's our mission. So our company as a whole, we're doing this because we believe everyone has a mission and we want everyone to align and really be able to help them accomplish that mission. The way we do this is through our personal brand accelerator, through our book publishing division, through our podcast, through our social media marketing, and through our PR efforts and our events. So we help people build a community around what they're doing and so really accomplish whatever that end mission is. So that's pretty much us in a nutshell. I mean, that really explains Mission Matter. You want to be able to explain this in like 1 sentence. For each of these questions, you really want to get this down into like 1 sentence for what you're doing. Not only that, you want to make your statement unique and you want to be bold and memorable. Again, we amplify stories. So it's very simple, very direct, very to the point. And that's how you want to make your statement. You want to make sure that it could be something that people can remember from, when they get a chance to meet you. And so when you're making your statement authentic, you want to make sure that you completely understand what you're doing. And again, look, you want to make your mission so simple that that a child could understand it. Hence what we've done. And we've had a chance to experiment with this, where I've had conversations with my nieces and nephews to really see if they understand what it is that we do. And I show them examples of the books and everything that we've done. So use that as like a very simple test for what you're doing. Also, you want to then focus on the design and the visual identity of your brand. This is where you can get very detailed into the color palette, into the font, the logo, the headshot. I showed you an example of my headshot, what I'm using consistently. When it comes to our branding, right, we have this orange and black color that we use consistently across the board. You'll find it on every single thing that we do. So it's consistent. And essentially, you want to make sure that these design elements, it immediately stands out. So anytime someone sees this, this is all they see. So in all our Zoom backgrounds, you'll see this. On our main website, you'll see this. In all of our email newsletter, or our email signatures of all of our staff, it's the same logo consistently across the board. So that orange and the black stand out every single time. Just recall memory. Same thing with tone. You really want to get into detail on, who, this again comes down to who is the language, like who's your target audience that you're looking to connect with. And this is where you can kind of figure out, is this formal or is it casual? What's the reading level of the people that you're looking to connect with? Are they college educated? Are they PhD? Are they high school graduates? You really want to figure out, can you use slang? In some instances, it is okay to use slang, right? If that's part of your branding and you're creating something that's very cultural, then it could make sense to use slang. I've seen it on cans. I actually just went to the food and the Expo West event, which is one of the biggest food and beverage trade shows on the West Coast. There were products that I saw where they were using slang because they were targeting the hip hop community. And it just made sense because it was just very aligned. This is even when you want to figure out what are the types of words that you want to use. What's the diction? Are you using humor? What are you using to connect with your audience and your style? It has to be organic to you and it has to be authentic to your approach and who you are. And so part of this is when you build this out, you want to build out like a one pager, like a style guide that explains who you are, your tone of voice, your brand identity, like the logos, the do's and don'ts. So this way across the board, it's consistent. We've got about 25 people on our team. And so it can create a lot of chaos. We created this one pager that we hand to every single person on the team so they know all the do's and don'ts of our brands. And there's a lot of consistency in there too, just so that you guys are aware. Now, this is the third thing. Now is where you really get into content creation that expresses your personal brand. Because now that you know who your target audience is, and now that you know who you are and what you stand for, how do you get that message across to your targeted audience? And so the ultimate goal with all the content is you want to build trust, demonstrate authority, gain exposure, generate leads, depending on whatever it is that you're promoting. And so when you're creating your content, it really needs to be built for that exact audience that you're approaching. So to give you a little bit more insight on me and kind of how I got into Mission Matters. So this is the photo. These photos are of me in Mongolia. I had a chance to travel to Mongolia over the summer, and I had a speaking opportunity to address how to be a mission-driven leader, essentially. So to give you some context, I know I kind of shared a little bit about my background. My personal mission is really to help people identify whatever their mission is. And then the goal is to help them accomplish that mission. I've been fortunate because I've been able to live this path, and it's been a long journey, but I've been able to figure out a way where my personal mission is aligned with my professional mission, which is also aligned with my spiritual mission for what I'm looking to achieve. It's basically in unison. It's like a DNA strand, like a double helix where it's completely integrated. And so really, I want people to identify whatever their true north is. I believe personally that if you can figure out whatever your life mission is, number one, you never feel like you're working, especially if you have the opportunity to work on that and to do it for a living. Number one, it never feels like work. And then secondly, I feel like you can overcome a lot of your past trauma and whatever it is that you need to do. Just because I've been able to do that personally, and it's created a lot of opportunities for me where it's allowed me to travel. Like one of the things that I've always wanted was to be global, mobile, and nimble. I had the opportunity to travel about 10 years ago to China when I was teaching English in China because I was learning Mandarin. It was an opportunity I had in between college. And so something that I wanted to do was to be able to travel the world and to be able to do that professionally. And so speaking on stage has allowed me to do this pretty frequently. I've been able to travel, I think, close to 30 some odd countries because of a lot of the speaking opportunities that I've been able to cultivate, through this. So my mission of helping people align and really figure out whatever their mission is what I personally preach. And I'm fortunate enough because I run a company called Mission Matters, which really amplifies that purpose. And we try to help people build a community around what they're doing to help them accomplish that mission. So the more authentic your messaging is, really that's everything that I address. So if you watch my social media feeds, it's all about building a community and then doing this with like a lot of our clients, doing this with a lot of friends. So it's part of like what I preach. You want to be able to find this for yourself. And so these are just some content ideas. You want to be able to write posts that address a problem and essentially offer a solution that works. And you want to create case studies and testimonials of people that you've been able to help. So these are just two forms of content that you can essentially focus on, especially when it comes to your business for what you're working on. You want to be able to create webinars or courses and create step-by-step for teaching, essentially like this, right? This is an entire webinar addressing what I do for a living, and I'm in real time sharing this with you. And you want to be able to tell stories that resonate. So one thing that I want to address, and a very simple way to get kickstarted around this, especially if you haven't posted too much on social media, is you want to be able to document your journey. I think one of the easiest things that we could all do is literally pull out our phone. And like for myself personally, right? Like I had a few meetings earlier today about understanding people what their businesses are, and they wanted some help with their personal brand. I could have just posted a content like an Instagram story, or I could have posted something on, it could have been a tweet or X post, whatever, or a thread. And I could have highlighted that, hey, I had an amazing day today. I chatted with 4 different people. And these were 3 things that I learned from just talking to those 3-4 people today. And that could have been my post, just documenting about what's been happening. So that's like a little hack that I use. And I always advise people, if you don't know what to post, just document your life. Just document what's happening in real time and what you're learning along the way. And essentially that in itself could be the content you could share consistently. And then part of that is you can tell stories, right? That's the storytelling component around this. And that's how you create your persona. That's how you make the content personal. Even though you're trying to build up a business, you're basically highlighting through documenting your life what you're learning along the way, and then how you're able to make a difference in other people's lives, or essentially whatever it is, that business that you're approaching with. So building on that, you want to post content regularly, and you want to focus on offering value without like being too salesy. Like my whole thing is you don't want to be that used car salesman. Essentially, that's not the vibe that you typically want to go for. Consistency and frequency of content is probably the most important thing. I mean, if I were to dive into this, look, social media is free, right? Like anyone can post online on social media. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be posting several times per day. I mean, I get it, we're all busy. So even if you're posting once per day, like that's a good stepping stone. But like to give you an example, on Mission Matters, we're posting almost 5 to 10 times per day. And understandably, we run a media brand, so we're creating content all the time. But even if you really want to build up your presence, whether you're hiring a team or whether you're doing this on your own, you can stand out. I mean, the way that you can build up your presence is, everyone can post on social media. Everyone can pick up their phone and, document their journey about what they've learned that day. And that could go on TikTok. Literally take that same content piece, upload it to Instagram Reels, upload that content to YouTube, right? So we all have the same tools and resources. There's no cost to anyone going in. There's no monetary cost, rather, to uploading that content consistently. But frequency and consistency of content is the #1 factor to building your brand, especially when you're building your following, rather. So just to keep that in mind. So you want to really create with your personal branding goals in mind. So you first want to really figure out what is your true north. What's the main focal point? Like, are you building a business? If you're running a legal practice, are you just trying to help people with as many business disputes as possible, right? Is that your main goal? In your case, or for other people, if you're selling a winery, one of the conversations I had literally right before this was with a gentleman that runs a winery out in Napa Valley, and he's got an amazing wine brand. He used to create content pretty consistently, and he kind of reconfigured his personal brand, was all focused on really showcasing his wines, and to do it as a minority owned business owner, because there aren't that many that are in the industry, and he wants to create a new face. So his entire personal brand is to show people that look like him what that they too can appreciate wine. And there are people like him in the industry, because he's trying to create a whole new category for what he's doing. So that's his personal brand. And so now he's creating content to get his face, to get his name out there as much as possible. So now part of his goal is, he wants to create more videos, video-based content, and he wants to launch a video podcast, which was the basis of my conversation with him. So I go into detail now, which is the goal is, how do you communicate your brand message where your audience will hear it? This is why you really want to be detailed on understanding who's your target audience, because you want to figure out what platforms they're spending time on. And I'm going to get into detail on all of the different platforms that you could focus on. So, when it comes to publishing content, you really need to understand your audience. And there are a few different ways that you could do this. I'm going to go through all of the different mediums where you can create content and start building up an audience. One of them is a blog. It's free, doesn't cost. You can go on to Medium, even if you don't have a personal website, though I would recommend creating a personal website and a company website, and then creating a blog around that where you can blog consistently. So it's one way you could regularly publish and engage and attract new audiences through search engines. There's a lot of AI now. AI can be used as a tool on ChatGPT, and you could literally write an entire blog post, have it ready to go. And then what you can do is edit the content after. So I'll get into that example of the winery, because I actually went through this example. I told him, I said, look, if you're going to you need to create more blog content. One of the things you can do is use ChatGPT to write out the series of blog posts that you're looking for. And then from there, edit the content and add in your personal touch into that. So then you can make it personalized to who you are. You could create examples of, different wines that you're trying. That's just that one specific example. So anyway, blogging is one method that does work, and it's one approach that you can take. Another one, and this is an example. So Mission Matters, we even if you don't have your own blog content, another hack that you can make is when you're consistently creating content is to be a guest contributor on other people's platforms too. So like, for example, Mission Matters, we always do look for other contributors that want to build up their brand. You know, we're reaching about 50, 60,000 people uniques a month on our website. So we drive a significant amount of traffic already. And so we have other people that want to build up their brand. We're always looking for guest contributors. So even if you don't want to create your own blog, you can reach out to other platforms or other media outlets to be guest contributors on their posts. So that's a second method. A third method is social media. And I could talk about this forever because there's so many different ways to approach this, but you want to build an engaged audience and get to know them and to interact with them and really build a community around what you're doing. So when it comes to social media platforms, you really want to know your audience because that audience is spending more time on that specific platform. So I'll give you an example. If you're looking to connect with like Gen Z, for example, they're probably spending a lot more time on TikTok than they are on Facebook. It probably doesn't make as much sense to invest a whole lot of time onto Facebook, right? If you're looking to connect with more baby boomers or you're looking to connect with audiences that are in emerging markets, you're getting more people that are signing on to Facebook that tend to be a little bit more older or more specifically into like more emerging markets. You're seeing like Facebook activity there. All the social platforms that are relevant though, Facebook, because there's still billions of people that use that platform, Instagram, X or Threads, X or Twitter. Threads is basically the, Facebook's or Meta's competitor to Twitter or X. YouTube, of course, TikTok, Pinterest, which does get overlooked every now and then. Snapchat, because there's still a significant audience there as well. And then also, I think I'm missing one. TikTok. LinkedIn, yeah, LinkedIn, huge. Definitely LinkedIn. So depending on those are like the 9-10 major platforms. I simplify this because I understand that we're all busy. Whatever content you're creating on one platform, the simplest way to get this going is to see if you can repurpose that content on all of the other platforms. So whatever you're posting on Instagram or TikTok or X or Twitter, see if you can reshare that same content on those other platforms, which is a very simple hack to get you at least a little bit more consistent on creating content across all the other platforms. A lot of times that's what I do when I get busy.
Sure. How about using a third-party software like Hootsuite to help you do that?
Absolutely. It works to a certain extent because they don't allow you to post on every platform, but it is a tool that you could utilize.
There are others, I believe.
There are, yeah, and there's competitors to Hootsuite. That in itself is a neat tool that you could use to create content. Not only that, but it allows you to build out a content calendar, so you could actually schedule posts into the future on those platforms as well. So even if you can't post that day on that platform, at the least you can schedule stuff out in advance. So you could plan around your day.
Thank you.
Just to keep that in mind. More content is even books. So this is an example of one of our books that we published. So we published a Woman in Business book where we had about 20 women business leaders, each contributed a chapter to the book. And this gives you an example of like the highlights of all the 20 women, like all 20 women, these are 4 of them that ended up sharing their book that they released. For many of them, this was the first time that they ever published the book. So this was a huge highlight and a huge bonus because a lot of them received some really high level engagement from a lot of this, from a lot of what they're doing. So anyway, just to give you like an example. And probably the biggest platform, especially now, is video content. So multimedia is definitely the ideal way that you want to go. Or I guess it depends on what you're doing, of course. But this is where you're going to attract the most amount of audience because organically, video content outperforms all other forms of content when it comes to these social media platforms. So whatever you can do to create video content, that's basically where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck ultimately. And the ultimate hack, and I'm probably going to spend the most time on this, is launching a podcast, ideally a video podcast. So these are about 10 of our clients that we launch podcasts for. So what ends up happening is if you launch a video podcast, the reason why it's so important and relevant is because number one, you could extract the audio content, and now you have content on every podcasting platform. There's about 40 podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, Wondery. I mean, I could go down the list, but there's about 40 podcasting platforms. you could extract that video content for YouTube. So you have the long form content, which can go on to some of the social media platforms. More importantly, you can find a 10-second golden nugget. Let's say if you recorded a 30-minute video podcast, you could find a 10-second golden nugget in there. That 10-second clip can be published on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and every social media platform. So they have social media content. Not only that, like what we do for our clients is we'll create 5 social media cuts, 5 to 10 social media cuts per episode. So you could have about 10 pieces of social media content all from this one podcast recording. So you don't have to think about it. So now you got social media content, you got video content, that audio content. You could transcribe that podcast episode. So now you got a blog post. That 5-10 second clip that you found, you could actually turn and create an advertisement around that as well. So for like a Facebook ad or Instagram ad. So literally you're hitting every form of content marketing from this one piece of content. And it's part of the reason why I praise podcasting. And just to give you an example, our entire media brand, when we launched Mission Matters, was all built off of our podcast. Everything that I'm explaining is how we built up our entire media brand. And what's been more fascinating, just to put this out there, is we started interviewing people that we wanted to connect with. Our target audience for Mission Matters is we connect with founders of companies. That's 50% of our clients. 25% of our clients are business professionals like doctors and lawyers and CPAs and financial advisors. And then 25% of our clients are executives of larger companies, like that are Fortune 500 executives, usually VPs or C-level executives, somewhere in that range. I say that because every single person we interviewed fit one of those 3 buckets of executives. So we've interviewed 6,500 people. The reason why I bring all this up is because we realized early on in our company that for every 10 podcast episodes we recorded, we got 1 paying client out of that. So imagine this, you're building a media brand while you're doing business development at the same time. That's how we built our entire media side of the business. And that's why we recorded so much content, because the numbers are still true. We recorded 6,500 podcast episodes, and our company, we have over 1,000 clients as a result of that. And yeah, as of this point in time, we've grown a lot more. So we get a lot of referrals, but just to give you an example of what you can do and how you can maximize and create blog posts and social media content and all other forms of content is by launching a podcast. So it's the one thing that I praise and I'm going to keep praising. And just to give you perspective on the podcast industry, right now, there's about 4 or 5 million podcasts that are in existence today. To give you perspective on YouTube, there's 115 YouTube channels that exist today. So if you were to ask me, should you launch a YouTube channel? Should you launch a podcast? Should you be active on TikTok? Because there's so many people that are active on there. The short answer is yes, absolutely. Because think of it this way, what happens if the podcast market right now, there's 3-4 million podcasts now. What happens when there's 30 million podcasts? What happens when there's 50 million podcasts? Essentially, you want to start now to start creating the content because the industry as a whole just continues to grow. And so I can talk on that forever, but anyways, I'm happy to answer specific questions if any come up on the podcast side. Bottom line goal is you want to expand your audience as a guest. So the other way to do this is not only launching your own podcast, but be a guest on other people's podcasts as well. So that's how you can build up your audience is you launch your own podcast, be a guest on other people's podcasts, another channel that you can approach to build up what you're doing. And so we're always looking to we're always looking for guests. So just the plug is anyone that's a founder of a company, an executive or an investor or a business professional, feel free to reach out to me after. Happy. And if you want to be a guest on our show, happy to bring you on. So the last part, and I think this is the last section on this, is publishing a book is probably the ultimate way of being a thought leader or being positioned as a thought leader or expert. And the best example I'll share is, because it happened with me, is I basically was trying to get the speaking opportunity. And then I ended up publishing a book. I sent a copy of the book. I sent the ebook version to 10 different event organizers, and I got 5 speaking opportunities. I don't even think they read the book, but I ended up getting 5 speaking opportunities just because I sent them a copy of the book and I told them this is the topic that I want to discuss. And so that's essentially why you want to publish a book. It's a great way to really highlight your authority in the space And I think it's still the ultimate way of building your brand reputation, to position you as a thought leader and as an expert in what you do. So I'll kind of end it with that. Anyway, these are some of the examples of some of the books that we've done. So part of the process is sometimes it can be hard to publish your own books. So you can write a chapter in a book. We've created an anthology series where we found experts and then had them each contribute a chapter. So something that we do pretty consistently here at Mission Matters. So anyway, we've identified the 4 steps for building your brand. So the goal is, of course, to increase your sales, your impact, your mission, and really highlight what you're doing. So just to summarize, this is essentially what it takes to make your personal brand work for you. So you really want to decide, you really want to narrow down who's your target audience. You really want to really hone in on what is your core vision, mission, and you want to figure out your own brand. From there, you want to get into creating the content that where the messaging is aligned between your brand and the person that you're targeting. And last but not least, you want to be able to post it where your audience will see it, which is the most important thing. So I'll end it with that. But yeah, happy to take on any questions. I know kind of went over quite a bit of information there.
I have several.
Yeah.
So hang on a second here. I'm going to I think I'm going to try and so I'll just start with my first question. How do you balance the personal brand that you have in your personal life with the personal brand you have in your professional life? And is it smart to segregate the two, or is it better to have a holistic view of who you are and promote yourself totally? How do you advise clients who kind of have both that private and public persona?
Great question. Okay, so the way I've personally done this is I've basically just accepted the fact that we live in the world where everyone has a phone and everyone's going to find out who you are, what you're doing, right? You never know who's recording, what they're recording, right? So the way that I approach it personally is I combine it all together. I've just honed in on this is just what my brand is. This is what I want to be known for. This is where I want to. So I combine it. My personal brand and my professional brand are completely intertwined. And essentially, I'm the same person. So whatever you see me posting, it's something that I would share with friends. It's something that I would share with family. That's what I post digitally. Just because I feel like everything, there's a record of it all, right? Whether Facebook or TikTok admit it or not, and whether it's true or not, I don't know. Whether they're storing this data or their information, I don't know what happens, something gets hacked or leaked. So I'm just under the impression that whatever I post digitally anywhere, it can be seen by other people, and that's just how I personally approach it.
Okay.
And
I'll follow up with another question.
Sure.
Because you mentioned the use of AI and using AI to write blogs or whatever. How do you make sure that it's in your voice? Because I think a lot of times when I've used Gemini or ChatGPT, it writes something, but it's not Len's voice, and people would know that. So how do I overcome that?
So the way I personally use ChatGPT, and I've seen others use it too, is I'll see them published, like get the excerpts of what they need using ChatGPT, but then I'll go in, I'll edit the blog post myself personally. So I'm going to rewrite this using stories and examples, so then I could intertwine my voice to my messages. But like sometimes someone's just the basic facts, I just needed to pull it. So I use it more as like a helping writing assistant, because I sometimes do get writer's block. So I'm stuck and I'm just in my own head. I'm like, I don't know where to start. And I'm like, I've had a long day. I'm like, I just need something to like put all the information out there. And then personally, I'll go in and I'll edit the whole content piece, whether it's a tweet, whether it's whether it is a blog post. I'm going in and I'm intertwining my own stories and I'm adding in my own flavoring into that. So I'm using it more as like a guide to like do the posting, but then I'm going to edit the content, because then you're right. It's not personalized, and it's not gonna, like, you can kind of tell. It's like for people that really know you and that are following you consistently, you can kind of tell. So that's
okay.
what
I have a couple of questions from the audience here. So Ross asks, where do you suggest hosting a podcast?
Yeah,
so particular platform?
Yeah, there's a few platforms. Like our company, we use a company called Buzzsprout to do the hosting of the podcast content. There's a few others. There's Megaphone, which is another good one that we've looked at too. And then the goal is to set up your podcasts on every platform from Apple, Google, Spotify. There's about like 40, I think. There's a little over 40 last time I checked. There's always new ones that are launching. So but use that, and then it allows you to post the content on every platform. So when you set up the account on Buzzsprout, then it'll automatically aggregate it across all the other podcasting channels.
Okay. Chi wants to ask, where can they find information on how to work with you?
I'm typing in my email address into the Zoom chat, so feel free to reach out to anyone here that has questions.
Easy, easy.
Yeah.
Tanya asked, what do you recommend to entrepreneurs who would like to start building their personal brand, but are still working their 9-to-5 job?
So I would do it after hours, right? Essentially, you want to figure out kind of the framework that I went through is what is your brand focused on? And I'll use myself as an example, right? Like essentially my mission is to help people identify what their mission is. And then I run a company called Mission Matters that helps people kind of identify that. It wasn't always like that though, right? Like I was working other jobs. I was running a social media agency, managing other people's social media content. I wasn't necessarily getting my own message out there per se, right? So the first thing I had to do, and it took some time, was for me to kind of figure out what is my own brand and how is it different from the company. Once I kind of figured out what my own brand was, I then figured out who are the people that I want to connect with? Like, who do I really want to target? And I knew that I wanted to work with more founders of companies because that's just where I got the most joy because I was one myself. And so once I kind of figured out who my audience was and I kind of figured out what my brand was, I figured out what are the platforms where my personality and my persona match that platform too. So it's easy. So it's not like I'm going out of the way to create content. So like for myself, I knew that I love posting on stories and being a little bit more active. And I like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where my audience typically is. And I like writing. So writing and like stories were my form of content. So I knew Instagram stories, some of the YouTube stories, like those platforms just resonated with me because it's easy, it's quick on the go. And then writing was, it just like it was more natural for me to write. So I was creating more content on LinkedIn and using like Instagram stories. So then I found the audience. I knew that they spent time on those platforms. And that's how I started creating content. My goal was, okay, I just need to spend 20 to 30 minutes creating, even if it's like one post a day. I mean, there was a point where on LinkedIn, I did this for about 4 or 5 months and I had a lot more virality, which is I think how I got a big boost in following. I was posting once per day on LinkedIn. I made that my mandatory goal, which is I needed to create one piece of content on LinkedIn. And in the beginning, it was a little bit harder, but then I just started planning. I just started creating ideas. I had an idea board in my notes, and then that's kind of how I did it. So hoping that's helpful, but that's how I approached it is I just dedicated 15 to 20, 30 minutes. And it was the first thing I did in the morning. I figured out for myself that posting content in the morning made the most sense for me.
Thank you. Excellent. Do we have any other questions from anybody? Sure. You must have answered everything because no questions. So with that, I just want to say I think personal branding is very important. And to reiterate, I think being authentic and finding your authentic self is really, really important.
I think we got one more question.
Yeah, it looks like, what's the timeline for a book to publish and promote?
How long should YouTube videos be? Okay. For the book, I guess so look, again, it depends on what's the purpose of the book, right? For some people it's to get speaking opportunities. For some people it's they may want to just promote their business a little bit further to get more clients for what they're doing. So number one, it really depends on what the goal is for the book. We've published books that have taken 3 months. We've published books where for some people it's taken a little bit over a year. So it depends. I mean, usually with us, our average norm for publishing a book from start to finish is about 6 to 8 months is pretty normal for us. And like it depends on how long the book is. It is obviously a huge difference between publishing a 50-page book and a 60 or like a 200-page book, right? So if we hire you, it is planning process and then timeline commitment based on joint efforts. Yeah, it is. It's a combine, right? We basically, because we published over 400 authors now, we provide the framework, we provide the timeline, we have coaches, we provide the architecture to get the entire book published from start to finish, and really kind of highlight how you get to where you need to be. So.
Okay, and then to follow on, we've spurred a bunch of questions here. How
Yeah.
long should your YouTube video be? And same thing with podcasts.
My thing on YouTube videos is it depends on the video. I mean, I've seen like 10, 20-minute videos usually do well. I've seen sometimes longer videos do well too. It just kind of comes down to, is it more educational? Is it more of an interview style where you're interviewing a guest? I think those could be a little bit longer. So depends on the timelines and the frameworks. I think just it's similar to podcasting, right? It kind of depends, where if it's more like a TED Talk where you're teaching, you're providing a tutorial, and maybe those could be like 5-10 minutes. If it's like a long tutorial where you've got like a step-by-step on doing something where you're like helping someone, I don't know, maybe it could be you're teaching someone how to do SEO and you're getting really granular and you're providing step-by-step instructions like a screen share, maybe that ends up being 30 minutes long, right? Because that's how long the tutorial is. So it depends. It's a case-by-case basis, and it depends on the industry and what you're teaching. With podcast episodes, if it's just you speaking, I mean, I think 10 to 15 minutes is like a good range. Maybe it could be less. And then if you're interviewing guests, I think a good rule of thumb is like 30 minutes. Personally, I don't think the Joe Rogan format of doing 3-4 hour podcast episodes or videos are generally the good route are the best route to go. Unless you're interviewing a really big celebrity and they're sharing something newsworthy, then yeah, people will stick around for that long episode, but in most cases not. I think, like if you're doing like 15 to 30, 45-minute episodes, I think that's like a good rule of thumb for podcasting specifically, especially when you're interviewing guests.
Outstanding. And then one last question I'll ask Chirag. How do you know you're being effective? What measurement tools are out there to say, hey, you're doing really good in video, you're not doing good in audio, or vice versa, or one platform is doing better than another?
Yeah, number one, consistency and frequency of content. So that's number one. And you're gonna have to look at the data over a time period, right? You got to look at it over like several months. If you're just getting started and you don't have a following, it's gonna take you time, right? Like it took us several years we didn't start monetizing our podcast for Mission Matters until 2-3 years, I think until 2.5 years doing what we were doing. So we didn't go into this thinking, hey, we're gonna make advertisement money from day one. So when you're starting this, it's just, you got to keep creating content, and you can't expect to create content thinking that you're going to get a buildup of audience and clients from creating content. So you have to be super patient with this. I think the way that you evaluate it is I usually will look at it over like a month. If you're just getting started, I would say look at it over like 3 months to 6 months. And if you've been doing this consistently enough, or you've been consistently creating content for like a year plus, I then look at it every month. Part of the reason why I do look at it every month is because I look to see how the platforms have evolved. And part of this is we're in the industry, so I'm reading all the time, has the algorithm changed on TikTok? How has the algorithm changed on Facebook? Like, one recent hack I've seen, and I've been seeing a lot of other folks do this too, and we're seeing engagement on this, is if you post a picture on Instagram, like usually videos were performing much better on Instagram. Now I'm seeing if you post like a meme, like a caption of a photo, and then you post a second post with that, like a slide. So one post that's like a photo on Instagram followed by a video. I'm seeing a lot more engagement on those posts than others, and been monitoring this for the last like several months, where you're seeing a little bit more engagement. And this is me just reading on it and just observing what are other people doing. So not only am I observing myself over time, what the engagement levels are, has the following grown or not grown, I'm observing other people as well that are like competitors in the industry to see what they're doing, to see how have their platforms evolved. Why are they posting certain things? Are they posting at certain times of the day? How frequently are they posting? What kind of content are they posting? And so I'm observing what other people are doing consistently in the industry. So that's another good indicator. It's not only look at your own data, but look at other people's data too on top of that.
All right, super. Any last comments? Any last comments from you?
I think it's never too late to get started. So whatever approach you're taking, you just got to get going. So.
All right, very good. Chirag, thank you very much. Everybody, this webinar will be on our YouTube channel. It's the Preccelerator channel on YouTube. It's very easy to find. Please subscribe to it. All of our workshops are recorded and reposited there. And our next workshop is going to be on April 9th. We are having a workshop on building an investor pitch and getting it ready for investors. And then on the 23rd of April, we have a webinar or program on Term Sheets 101. So lots of good content coming up. I want to thank everybody for your attention today. And with that, we will conclude our workshop. Thank you.
Cool.